Hi guys, as promised this is a quick video on the modifications to Peco points for DCC smooth running. This is to put a permanent feed on the closure rail on the points here. And the instructions are quite simple. On this great big sheet of paper here, all we're interested in this case, as being just a standard set of points, is this piece here. Now I'll try and bring this closer up, and with my pointy scalpel, if you can see that there, we've basically got to put a link wire in here, and on the points, on the frog, there's these wires to remove. That's it. Quite a simple thing. So I'll show you on the points. Here we have the points, so switch rails, closure rails, stock rails, in case I mention things on the way. So we need to can't put my teeth in this morning. Link these two rails here together and remove this link wire. Quite a simple task. So what is also on here at the top of the points on this end of the frog is another dropper wire just hooked around the end of the sleeper at the minute. You drop that through the board and that connects to the feed from your polarity switch if you're using a separate switch. In this case I am using DCC cobalt motors, but these do come with a switch housing in the points, and it's quite a simple little drawing here of how to connect the two rails polarity to the micro switch if you're using a micro switch to change them over. So instructions out of the way because we're not going to need them. First job to do is to remove this wire. Now I'm going to get in there with the screw, just hook it up a bit. So I can get my little side cutters and cut the wires. So cut. This one's a bit tighter to get into. Can't see if I can. Unfortunately, working close up is best for me without my glasses on. So that one is definitely, so I'll take him off. Using my pliers to hold it. Wiggle that one off. Oh, it's tight in there. That's got it. So in there the loop wire has been removed. Okay, so having removed that wire, we now need to join up the two stock rails with their corresponding closure rails. So the easiest way to do that, because my knives are blunt and aren't playing ball, hence the continuity change. You'll have seen some things move on the bench where I've tried to cut them out with my knife but they just wouldn't cut. So there's one. Two. So now you can see the bottom of the rails through so we're going to link these two together and those two together. So before I go any further and do some soldering, I always clean the bottom of the rail. I can't find, as usual, my fiberglass pen, so I have a bit of 1500 grit, wet and dry, just to clean the back of the rails. So hopefully when I get in there with my soldering iron, the solder will take quite quick. So my soldering iron has been on a little while. I'll clean the tip off. Nice clean tip. Cleanliness is next to godliness, so they tell me. So hopefully it won't take too much to drop a small spot of solder on each of the rails. You don't need much. That's it. The advantage of clean metal and a hot soldering iron. So you'll see there the 4 little blobs of solder. So now I just pick a piece of little old wire that I've got. Doesn't have to be anything exciting. And what I'm going to do is just, with the square end of my cutters, which is blunt, just strip back some wire. There we go. And twist it back up. Twist, twist, twist. Twist it to the end. So I've got about 2 inches of bare wire there. What I generally did with all my 00 points was just solder it straight across there and you wouldn't see it. But because we've got a larger gap being O gauge here, what I'm going to do is make some loops. So first thing I'm going to do is, using my extra pair of hands here, get my soldering iron, nice and clean, and tinning the wire. But I'm going to tin it all the way down, so all the wire is soldering it. I don't think this is the cleanest wire in the world, but job's done. Clean the tip. So now, I'm just going to cut the end off of that. I have a piece of leaded wire. I'm going to cut that in half, about 3/4 of an inch. And solid wire. Which will run across there. But what I'm going to do is make a loop out of it. I'm going to wrap it around this screwdriver. Fold the ends flat to sort of 90 degrees. So basically, if I hold it up to you there, you'll see it's like a horseshoe with 2 90-degree legs. And what I'm going to do is solder it on the back so that it's a loop down like that, it drops down. So when I ballast the points, it will hide the loop wire. Not so important in 00 gauge because everything is smaller and you can't see it so much once you've painted it to match the rails. And the advantage of having the wire loaded with solder already, you don't need any more solder. You just touch it together until they melt. and that's one end attached. It's quick and simple as that. Because it's quite warm, I shall just use these there. And because of the lead in the solder there, it all forms together and it holds its position nicely. Touch it with the soldering iron till it melts. And that's it. That wire is now firmly attached to both rails and it's dropped down, so when you ballast it, it can be hidden away by some of the ballast. So I'll repeat that with the second piece of wire. So make a horseshoe around my screwdriver. Fold the ends over 90 degrees. So it makes a little drop up. And then hold it onto the rail. Use the right hand, it helps. Hold it on. Touch the iron, melt the solder, there we go, that's one end done. I won't use my fingers, it's quite hot. Iron and melted. And that is that. So if you can see there, I'll just got this little wire loop out the bottom. Because it's only thin wire, it can be flattened down by pushing it down, so it doesn't stick out the bottom. So when you lay it on the board, it's flush, or you can just have it dropping out the bottom. It's just so it's with the ballast on top, it will be hidden. So that's it, that's the first set of points done. Only two more to go. Okay, so this next part we'll do speeded up. You don't need to see it real time, just to refresh and watch what I did. So basically this time we'll just cut through with the side cutters, no second take this time. Yeah, it's all dead easy. Once you've done one, you can just carry on and do some more. It's just the initial first attempt. So you've got to remember this is basic stuff, basic electrics, and you're trying to create a feed that is permanent, so you're not relying on the point switches. The point switches will get dirt in between them over time, the little fish plate things on them become loose, and your connectivity sort of reduces over time. It's not so bad with DCC if you fit stay alive capacitors to them. And yeah, so here we go. So resolder on the bottom of the rails, just a little spot. The object of the exercise is not to get too much solder on anywhere. The wire will draw up by capillary action, So if you want nice tidy joins, you just tin everything first, which means you put a bit of solder on each item before you join them together. And then when you join them together, you just heat the two parts at the same time and the solder on both melts, and as it cools they just stay together, which is what I'm doing here on this piece of wire, which is what I do have separate flux in that yellow tub at the back there, but it's quite aggressive and you need to wash it off afterwards. So there's sufficient flux if you clean the item first with the bit of emery cloth to allow the flux that is in the resin cord solder to work correctly and give you a quick, easy join. So as you can see, it just quickly flows up with the heat, capillary action up through the strands of the wire, draws it through. As easy as that. And then again, cut them down and make the little horseshoes. Cut the dirty piece off the end, but yeah. Cut them in half again, get my screwdriver, horseshoe shaped. So you don't have to do this part, you can actually just solder wires straight across. But what I'm trying to do here is make it so that I can bury the bits of wire in the ballast before painting and everything else, so that you can't see them. In double O gauge they're tiny points, so you can't really see it. Once you've painted the wire and the rail the same colour, it sort of disappears and blends in. But as I say, with the O gauge you have a much bigger gap. So soldering iron, because both items are tinned, you just touch them together with the soldering iron. That way you don't melt too much of the sleepers. But what I missed on this is that little screw that holds the tip in of the soldering iron. I'm so busy concentrating on what the tip is doing that a couple of times I didn't see where that screw was, and it was around the side underneath and has melted a bit of the sleepers. But it's no real trouble. Quick trim with a sharp knife of the melted edges, just the same as what I did on the shunter when I fitted the sound, soldered the speaker in on the tabs and things. It was got to watch all sides at the same time. As easy as that. And now we'll do the second one the same. Just trying to straighten it up on the rail because it was slightly twisted. So just by straightening it up and bring it in line underneath the rail, and I haven't got to trim it or can't see it from outside. But whilst I'm sitting here soldering on here, the next video will probably be fixing down some track, I think. I've got a couple of other little things to do. The lighting for the 33 show you that one. What I did there, that's still working quite nicely. I'm just making sure it's reliable and having a play on the layout. Just wired up a bit of track and played along. So there we go, that's the second one done. Just got to cut out the bits of wire there that connect the frog over from the switch rails. Those bits of wire bypass the insulated block. If you're doing double O, you have a gap in the rail that you have to take that little bit of wire off, but here we got a proper piece of wire underneath that wraps around everything. It's just tight under there. That's it. Simple as that. But I think I've got to put those cutters in the bin. So that's that. So what we have now connected is from this rail, or this rail here, from the plastic joint there, is connected via the wire we just soldered into this rail. So all the time this is live, that is live. And the same with that one to there. So the wire we've taken out from the back here bridged the joint there. So this was all fed from the point blade, was fed all the way through this bit and down here to that rail, was all fed from the direct contact here. So by removing that join there, this switch would only liven up to here anyway, so the frog becomes dead. So we need to, because these are permanently the same polarity and these are permanently the same polarity, you have to feed the frog separately depending on which way the points throw, which is what this wire here is there. So when you mount it on the board now, you've got to remember to put insulated fish plates on here, because this polarity of this is going to change even though the rails next to it won't. So this has to remain isolated. And it's quite simple. On the DCC Concepts cobalt motors, there is 2 inputs, one for each rail fed from the track, and one that you just solder a wire onto which runs to the frog, and it automatically changes over. If you don't, you have a micro switch that Peco do that fits in here as per the instructions to change it over. So I hope that video was useful. Sorry it's a bit cramped in here, which makes it a bit awkward at times, but simple job. That's how you do it. Pink, cut, job done. So if you enjoyed the video or any questions, please feel free to ask and subscribe and share it if you know anyone that's trying to sort their points out. Catch you next time.